There is a saying that goes, evil never dies, it merely sleeps. And when that evil awakes, it can do so soundlessly, or almost so. That's the opening line to Nick Cutter's novel, Little Heaven, a story that begins with Micah Shagru, who awakens in the night to discover his daughter has been abducted by a demon-like otherworldly force. In response to this circumstance, Micah calls some old friends, Ebenezer Elkins, an Afro-British assassin settled in America, and Minnie Atwater, a wandering bounty hunter. All of them have abilities drawn from a supernatural source. Much of the book explores the origins of these abilities via flashback, which takes up much of the book. Minnie's ability is she can't die, no matter the method or even her own attempts of suicide, and Ebenezer was granted the sight of God's face, a horrifyingly dispassionate and strangely baby-like face that looks upon the masses of the world with complete cold indifference. All of this ties to a settlement in the western wilderness called Little Heaven, where a cruel, fanatical preacher named Amos Flesher rules over a small congregation. Back in 1965, Micah, Ebenezer, and Minnie were hired to rescue a woman's nephew from the compound after the boy's father fell under the spell of preacher Amos. Dark forces loom over Little Heaven, forces marshaling their powers, and Micah, Ebenezer, and Minnie battle for their lives as well as the lives of their client. But it won't forget them. Its shadow extends to 15 years later, determined to execute a far more horrifying agenda. This novel was a fantastic, terrifying ride. I loved the eerie western feel of the whole thing. Kind of felt like a Clint Eastwood western, combined with a Lovecraftian or Poe-esque horror story. You have these low-life gunslinger mercenaries battling a cosmic terror. Micah's the most likable character. He's noble and tough-minded and rough around the edges. Ebenezer is the most fascinating. He's ruthless, cruel, but refined and educated. Minnie simmers with vindictive resentment, and her backstory involving the death of her brother is one of the most genuinely frightening scenes in the book. Amos Flesher might be one of the most evil characters I've ever seen put to print. He's deviant, selfish, and chillingly cruel. Nick Cutter mentions in the afterword of the book that he used details from the real-life cult leader Jim Jones to develop Amos Flesher's character. You will hate Amos Flesher. He will leave a nasty, sour feeling in your heart, but he is the evil antagonist, so it makes sense. And monsters. You're in for all kinds of fascinating monsters. Strange, chaotic, and disordered conglomerations of animal heads and limbs, a flying pterodactyl bat-like thing, and more. The woods are full of all kinds of brutal, scary surprises. This book's a big one. My copy's around 486 pages. Its structure sprawls a bit, and there were moments where the story kind of dragged on for me. There are some moments in the book I think Nick could have totally omitted. For instance, there's a scene when the maniacal preacher sings a bizarre, scathing hymn that mocks Jesus Christ. Look, I get the preacher's corrupt and evil, but we already understand that from his actions before this moment. The scene comes across as jarring, low, and frankly silly. It even seems bizarrely out of character for the preacher. I think he could have done better without it. I want to read to you my favorite passage from the book. This comes from page 260, and it's describing fear and fear's affect on people, how it warps us and turns us into a monster, and I guess strips away the illusion of our better selves. Fear finds a home in you. That was a lesson Micah had learned at some price. It finds the softest spots imaginable and sets up residence. That place behind your knees where your nerves bundle up, buckling them. Inside your lungs, pinching the air out of them. Within your head, spreading like fungus. Fear will make you abandon those you care for, even those you claim to love. the people you tell yourself you'd save, sacrificing your body for theirs, if it ever came to that. And hypothetically, yes, you would. At least in those dream scenarios we all concoct. The burning houses, the crazed gunmen. You'd risk that heat or take that bullet. In a man's fantasies, he always does the right thing. But sometimes a man must face the absolute reality of his fear, and he'll discover that terror can chew him up and turn him into something else. A monster of wrath, or of cowardice. That man finds himself inhabiting the skin of a total stranger, except not really. It is the creature he becomes in the pressure cooker. Fear can warp a man, turn him into a repellent specimen whom he never thought he could be, not in a million years. Easily, I award 4.5 out of 5 for Nick Cutter's novel, Little Heaven. If you like books about cults and bizarre monsters, this one's for you. And that concludes my review. Thanks for watching. Give it a like and please subscribe. And guys, please do comment. Let me know your thoughts about this book. And this is DeathGroundReviews. I'll see you next time.